Washington did not know how evil that man was.
These are both yours.
Right, thanks.
Thank you, Debbie.
Did you need one?
I have two bottles right here,
Okay,
Debbie.
good.
So I couldn't understand at all why the people in Washington, the politicians, the recorders, the historians, and none of them knew what a devious, evil man Anthony Fauci is. It just seemed to go right over their heads, and they almost put a crown on his head and said what a wonderful man he is. And I thought, you people haven't been following his career at all. He is an evil man. So any article that they published about Anthony Fauci, I made copies from Dr. Mercola's website.
Okay, I know.
Not his website, but the emails that Dr. Mercola sent me. And so those binders that are on that shelf just under that light bulb, those are 1 year of collecting, and then we have the bottom row of collecting, and then we have the row on the other place there. So all of those are stories about Fauci and the doctors that he tried to destroy, the doctors that lost their medical licenses, and how he wouldn't let anything to do with nutrition, and he wouldn't let any of this happen. And I kept figuring out, when are they going to recognize that he's an evil man? So I just kept copying these reports and putting them in these binders. And that kept me very busy when I went out for my walk every day. I never wore a mask. Didn't try to avoid anybody walking up and down, because they walked their dogs up and down this street.
With the mask on.
And they would, as soon as they see me coming,
Excuse me.
they would walk out in the street.
Because you didn't have a mask on.
I did I couldn't.
But they did.
I put one on. I wanted to go into Dollar Tree,
That they make you wear one.
and they said, "Oh, you'll have to wear a mask." Now, I had picked up a mask when I had stopped at the bank, because they were giving them away free. So I put the mask on. I didn't get halfway down the first aisle when I thought, I can't breathe. I'll fall over. And so I lowered the mask. And I thought, there's no way anybody's going to make me wear a mask and have me doing any kind of movement, because I know myself. I know that I have a breathing issue. I've had it since I'm 12 years old. So I knew that that was not for me. And the only place that I put one on was when I went to a medical facility, because I had a wound on my back, and the doctor called it a liver something.
Where was the wound at?
It was here, near the spine, right about here.
Okay. And
And it was the second time I had one. They were 5 years apart.
was it just came out of your body, or did you
Yeah,
fall?
and it kept getting more like a, and I thought, this is like the football players used to get when they wore those shoulder pads when they did their practice in high school.
Mhm.
And these boys would have these great big humongous yellow things on their back. And I thought, that's what that is. But I couldn't get back to see it. I couldn't get back to treat it. I had to have somebody lance it and get all the pus out of there. But those are the only times I wore a mask, was when I was in a doctor's office. I think 3 times I was in a medical facility, so that's the only time I wore it. So
One of the interesting things also with the ivermectin and this experience with the rash and the eyes and the ears with the ivermectin, and also swabbing the inside of the nostrils because a lot of parasites hang out in there. It's
Oh,
really
everything comes in through the
really
nose,
a
right?
clever way to
Yeah.
wreak havoc on these parasites. But about 10 years ago, I've been doing, my belly bed's been pulsing for 30 years, so about 10 years ago, I had this spot on my back, and just lean forward, I'll show you where it is. It's about right, about T6, T7, just to the right of the spine, about right in here. And there's like a pink spot that was there. And I showed it to Jo, and she said, well, yeah, it's a little different color than the rest of your skin. It kind of itched. And so when I started doing this ivermectin, that one of the protocols is say you can put it on your age spots, because those are like breathing ports for parasites.
Oh, really? Oh, I got lots of them.
Yeah, so do I. Not, you know, and so this one on my back, it felt like the kill shot. Literally, it was like, it's something embryologically, like where the egg enters the sperm, and then from the egg rearranges around the entry point. Something very, but anyway, when I started doing that, that's when I really took back control of this. It was like the kill shot for all the parasites that were coming out in the rashes on my ankles from
rashes,
doing
yeah.
the ears and the eyes and the nose. But then I had this feeling, and I couldn't. The first time I had Megan, Megan and Clay live at the farm in that trailer, and so I had her do it the first time, like 5 drops of ivermectin on a Q-tip, and I told her, and she said, well, there's a mole there. And I said, well, just make a 1-inch circle around that mole. So I'm laying there face down on the table, and I got my shirt off, and she puts it on there, and I'm just kind of feeling it, and all of a sudden, 3 inches above and below that point on both sides of the spine went into spasm.
Oh,
And I was like, holy shit.
what's that?
And so I
Yeah.
told Megan, and she's in massage, she had a gua sha tool there. I said, Megan, I've got into spasm. So she came and she worked the muscles out. But the initial reaction of my body to put an ivermectin on that one specific mole on my back, and so it could be that those points you're talking about are breathing ports for latent parasite colonies. Because we coexist with these parasites.
Yeah.
And that's the magic of what Dr. Yu has found. Is he said a lot of the homeopaths that have followed Vol, they still die from parasite infections because it's a new one. He says he can balance on the dermatron the meridians faster with parasite medication than he's ever, with any of the natural parasite medications, like whatever. There's a lot of
Wormwood is a popular one.
wormwood
And black walnut.
black walnut, and there's I'm trying to think of this oil, but anyway, and he tried all those, and he did hold the clock and all that for the parasite, because he had a lot of different things. But he said the parasite medications that you give to the horses, like I described before, and so and the other medical doctors he tells this to, they ask him, how do you get away with giving such high doses of these parasite medications? He says what he found is if you just mamsy-pamsy with a little bit, they go and hide in the tissues for a while,
Sure they would.
and then they come back. So if you're gonna kill them, you got to kill them, and then the meridians balance very faster than any, and that's the magic, I think, of what he's found by being in the military, going down to Bolivia, giving the pentapamate to 10,000 people, and then coming back and starting to play with it in his practice. But it's very, so, I got a few liver spots, aging spots, whatever, and so that's like a nightly ritual. I'll take the ivermectin and the Q-tip, and I'll go around. But for my back, what I came up with is this telescoping magnetic thing that you pick up pieces of metal that telescope, and I just put a Q-tip on the end of it, and so I'll soak the Q-tip with 5 drops, and I got to the point where I can just go over the back and hit right on the spot, put a little circle, and I do in my ears and the nostrils, and also these things we use in the womb, these suck push mechanisms. like this, especially on the right side. I have like a wart right up in here, which I think is like a partial leftover from losing my twin. But anyway, this is the side that I struggle the most on. That's the side that my oldest daughter Jennifer has the cerebral palsy too. So she picked that up from my ancestral weaknesses. But anyway, so I've been dosing these two tracks, and I think I'm getting, my ankles look so much better. These, I mean, it was such a bad rash. You can still see a little bit here, and if you feel it's a little bit rough, but it's so much better than it was. Oh, it's such a bad. And I've done I tried so many ways to get at these little burrs, and then it just came to me to, well, I read on this, it's called Dirt Road Discussions. You can find it on Telegram, and it talks about his experience with using ivermectin, in the eyes, ears, and nose, and on these spots, and in the belly button. That's what really got my attention, because of my experience with my belly button pulsing when I elicit the nasal pain. It's pretty interesting. But I think this universal pulse that I've been experiencing through the navel is the same one we all use to build our bodies. It's just the way the Creator designed gestation and birth. And it's the same for all the... I had a dream once, about a year ago, I'd say, and I was walking along a river, and up ahead of me was a bunch of people, and they were like in the old, one-piece bathing suits, and they were diving, and they had the shower caps on. They were diving headfirst in the water, and then as I walked up to them, this tornado came, and I got caught up in the tornado, and I was being spun up just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and so my back was to the outside of the tornado, and I was spinning clockwise, going up, up, and up. And about halfway up the wall of the tornado, this 32-jewel breastplate came out of the ether of the tornado and came on me, because evidently I needed to be wearing this to access the higher plane that I popped out on top of. So when I popped out on top, I was like on just a gentle sloping disc, and it was like a round area, and I walked up to the edge, and it looked like an endless sea of what I call bobbleheads, like a cloud of balloons, white balloons, and each of them had two eyes, a nose, two ears, and a mouth, and they were all singing the same song with me. And it's the song from The Sound of Music. When you know the notes to sing, you can sing most anything. So they were all singing in perfect, it was like such a supportive feeling. And the feeling I got is this is how all consciousness and outward forms start. And this is consciousness. And they can, in the creative process, they can become any of the outward many manifestations, like the owl, and all the different animals, birds, and fishes. But their purpose is to be the end of time. And this plan was in place since the beginning for the end of time. And so I was taken with this 32-jewel breastplate, and then this man walks up next to me, and he to me it was like, if it's not Jesus, he looks like him. He had a beard. He didn't introduce himself, no fanfare, and he walked up singing the same song with me. He wasn't wanting any recognition. He was singing the song. Like everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And we sang for a while, and then it was like, okay, then he said, well, come with me. And then we went towards another area on the dome, and there was a building. And I walked into the building, and there was like an elevated seat up there, and there was a beautiful woman sitting in this chair, and she had a red and black felt hat with a red feather on it, and she was reading a book. And I looked at her and I said, to her, "I could love you." And she was reading her book, and she looked up like this, and raised one eyebrow, and then went back to reading. Like, no way in hell you could love me. But it's like we have to find the love inside. But anyways, that was a very interesting dream that gave me the perception that all life forms start as this balloon of consciousness, and some of the facial expressions of these bobbleheads, I called them, had the look of the ancients, just the wisest. They've been singing the same song forever and ever and ever. It was a beautiful dream.
I'm going to turn that light off. It's too glary.
All right. Do you want me to turn it off?
No,
Oh, you have to go down the stairs?
No.
Oh, you can turn it off from right here? Okay. So that was I've had many dreams since my belly button, or even before my belly button started to pulse. I had the dream of the lion and the lamb.
What I've been trying to follow with a lot of information from Dr. Lee Merritt is about the medication that has been available, of which ivermectin is one. Ivermectin has been around and safely used for 70 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was in South America, that was 57, 58, when they had the Asian flu. And I was the only one of the 22 people in the embassy that was not sick. So that left me a lot of work to do with handling paper communication to take from this house to this house, and I also had my own car. And so I would have to visit with all these people that were sick, and I never got sick. But one day we were in the Navy plane going up to the jungle to deliver supplies to the military Paraguay soldiers up in the jungle. The jungle, a real jungle.
Wow.
And we were out of the aircraft for at least an hour on the ground, walking around looking to see if what we would see. It was so primitive. And from that trip, the next day we flew to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and we went shopping because that's what people do in Buenos Aires. And that night, I woke up in a sweat, and the next day I had such a horrible headache, and I'm not a headache person, so I couldn't imagine why I had this terrible headache. And so I've often wondered, until I met Ben, and when he said to me, "You've had malaria," and I said, "Well, that must be when I went up to the jungle. I must have gotten bitten by one of those malaria mosquito carriers." And then I look back to all of those years when those episodes of malaria and you break out in a sweat, but my eyes never turned, whites of my eyes never turned yellow, and I didn't feel sick in those years, just this heavy sweating. But I wondered if the reason that I have vision problems and hearing problems is because of the parasite must have settled in my head, and it affected those different very sensitive organs.
You can get 1% injectable ivermectin over the counter at Tractor Trailer Supply.
Okay. We go to Tractor Supply quite frequently to get cat food. Now,
But you have to learn how to take the cap off and pour it into a dropper bottle.
into something else, yeah. I had occasion to visit with a woman who went for a hearing test many years ago. And I asked the operator, I said, how do people wear hearing aids if they have these terribly itchy ears that it comes and goes? So I don't really know how to describe it, only that it drives you crazy, the itching.
You have this itching?
It comes and goes.
Well, I've had a lot of earaches and challenges with the ears, and since I've been doing the ivermectin in the ears, it's cleared it up. I'm
Okay,
just
I read
really
something
thankful.
online that said to use alcohol that you use to clean a wound, that and white vinegar and a Q-tip and run it around the ears. And then somebody somewhere along the way said, you probably have infection in your ears. I had it in both ears. And so I have that available at my bedside, the Q-tips and the solution I made with the 2 ingredients. And when the itch starts, I put that in there, and then it stops itching, so I can go to sleep at night.
That's good.
But
Well,
I think that I believe there's got to be a
Parasites.
parasite involved, because this comes and goes.
You can push it back, but it just goes dormant until, let's go out and play again.
Well, what I
Or
find,
itch your ear.
what I'm finding is when I feel challenged by anything, whether it's a noise or a vision, or I get one of these spam calls, or I have something on the video that I was working with, this Fauci thing, the anxiety would come up. And then I would notice the next day I'd have the itchy ears. And then I learned
Yes.
about Brian Artis, and I thought, because I'm using this combination inside the ear, I never thought about using the ivermectin inside my ears. I bought it, and as the pediatrician said for the children, I put it on their neck, the lower part of the neck. And that's where I find it easy to do for the children, for the parasites. So that's how I was using what I had. But I have run out of what I have. Debbie has some. But I'm going to be reminded now to say use the ivermectin in the ears. And then I have this patch.
And the nostrils?
And then I learned that most parasites enter the body through the breathing, through the nose.
And they spray those chemtrails, and who knows what nanobots they're putting in them chemtrails.
I wonder now if you've heard, I knew what the original formula was that they were spraying with. And 2 years ago, they changed the formula. And with all my documents there, I thought, oh my God, which book is it in? The new formula. I heard recently they have changed the formula again since the pandemic.
I believe it.
They've changed the formula. And the question that many people have is, have they added glyphosate to the formula that they're doing the cloud coverage with?
Chemtrails. You know, it's like, I look up there and I see these guys, and I think about the amount of money it takes to keep that many planes in the air spraying stuff on a consistent basis. And I can't even fathom the amount of money, the endless supply of money they must have.
They're using drones now to do this spray. They're not piloted planes anymore, they're drones. Because the men that were piloting the planes were getting too sick. So they had to do something different.
You think and they do it in the name of global warming, but actually it's a genocide.
It is a genocide,
And
absolutely.
they use the excuse. And global warming again is based on the globe model of the Earth,
Yeah, but
and that's a way that they can still push that narrative.
if you stop the CO2, then the plants will die, the trees will die, and eventually the people with the mask on the face will die because CO2 is used we exhale it, and the plants and the grasses and the trees, that's what they need to function. But this whole business of closing off the sky is to shut off the sunlight so we don't have the vitamin D coming through the skin anymore.
It's another factor. It's a war, and they want us to die without having to destroy the infrastructure, like in the world wars where they were bombing and they kill the people, but then all the buildings are destroyed too.
I've read a lot of stories about that kind of warfare. You know, kill the people, but leave the buildings alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can talk the people into trusting the jab, and they'll go and self-inoculate, and then die mysteriously from a heart attack or breathing issues or whatever later on, and then they blame it on the COVID, not on the shot.
Yeah, it's all blamed on COVID. But the virus was computer generated, so nobody can duplicate it to put it under a magnifying glass, because it was computer generated.
It's hard to know what the truth is anymore, I've heard, and I think, this disinformation and spinning so many stories, it's the simplicity of, the umbilical cord being a syringe, and the reason why they get away with immunizations and then the COVID, using the syringe as the weapon, is because of we were completely dependent upon this for life, and so that memory fuels our trust. So we're willing, and especially when the government would be the placenta, the governing body in the womb. So when the government, it's all, and we've created government as a way to put these memories from the womb when this was our governing body. So the inner 9 months is a reflection of the outer 90 years. And what I've been saying ever since my belly button started to pulse is that, we're condemned to repeat what we don't remember, and that all that we're repeating on the world stage as a general rule of mass unconsciousness is conception to age 3 or 4. And until we can get past the memory of conception, which is what fuels all the wars because of the memory of one sperm in a trillion. And something that came to me the other day was the egg and the sperms, and a lot of them die en route along the fallopian tube. But there's a pack that gets there, and they're all trying to find the entrance, and only one gets in, and that would be like the emperor.
Yeah.
And then all the other ones, and even in the ancient Chinese, they would bury all of the other soldiers and everybody with the emperor if the emperor died. So that encouraged these people to do everything they could to keep the emperor alive. But it's all a reflection of this very early memory of conception. So we have to, get past, this mortal body and how it got here to our higher consciousness, and like Debbie described, be an observer. But that's something that just came to me recently about dictatorships like the Nazis and how
like Biden right now.
Hitler or Biden, it's like it's this memory of conception.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that base of. But in traveling the entire world, and spending years living with these different cultures, climates, foods, belief systems, and working with a government. Then, when I came back to the United States in 1964, 65, I think 65, August of 65, I came back with the belief that we're all the same. We all want the same thing with our family. We all want to have something to do, which we call a job. We all need to pay our way. We don't need to be burdened by debt. I said, that's worldwide how people live. If you let them live by their own culture, in their country, in their climate, with their food. So today, you go to the grocery store and there's food from all over the world. How does the body, being challenged with this different energy of food, Americans today are so weak and so sick, and they go to a restaurant and eat a food from another country, they either get diarrhea or they get a bellyache or they throw it up because it's too high an energy field for what they can accommodate.
I read this book about the ancient Tibetan monks that would live to be 250 years old.
The breatharians.
And the book was called The Eye of Revelation.
Okay.
And they talk about the 5 Tibetan rites that these monks would do every day. It's kind of like a yoga moves. Have you ever heard of the Tibetan rites and these monks at 250 years old? I believe they had learned how to regrow teeth, but as long as teeth are still in the mouth, we can never, and that's the whole thing with the dental thing, as long as they can, even when the teeth come out, then they poison, the material, so we cannot allow that ability to grow new teeth to come through.
I've heard that the people in India, the medical profession in India, knows how to regrow your teeth.
There's a lot of money being put into learning how.
And of course, I don't think
regrow
the ADA will let any of us learn how you regrow the teeth, because I know children that have their 3rd set of teeth. So we know that the body can regrow it if it has the right nutrition.
That's right, and so this whole thing with Vol's suppression of his hard-earned knowledge, from what I remember, I guess it was Ben told me that they wouldn't teach him unless he pulled his teeth, and then they knew he would live because they already knew how to grow. And I'm thinking that maybe it was these Tibetan monks is where Vol went, because he would have had access through the British colonel that was allowed to live with these monks, and they only ate, and speaking about the diversity of foods, the monks would eat only one type of food at a meal,
Right.
maybe 2,
Right.
and 1 egg a day. And they lived so simply, and they lived the law of celibacy. They didn't waste their energy,
Right.
creating kids. And so it just came to me that this is likely what Vol had heard about. He was dying of cancer, and this knowledge of this colonel that found these Tibetan monks was allowed into their midst, reversed his aging to the point that when he went back to England, they thought it was his son. 40 years he
my
regrew.
goodness.
His hair was dark, and he did these Tibetan rites, and he ate the 1 food a day, and he, of course they would have had pure water and the sun and growing their own vegetables and barefoot and touching and earthing and touching. It's so simple. But that's why when Joe asked me to go to this farm, I was living in Davenport and I was trying to do my rebirthing in this fluoridated water, and I knew it was bad. So that was a big reason why I said yes to her. and we have a well there. So that's, you know, I've been doing this just been listening to the pulsing, and then I got guided into this parasite business from Dr. Yu, who's also a proponent of Dr. Dervol. So and then that's what when I was reanimated or supported by what and by him as a beautiful person, that's what inspired me then to go ahead and even if Rita isn't here, because the narrative you guys told me was so much different than what he had been taught by the dentist in Germany. So, I don't know. If you'd like to read through this sometime, you're welcome to. Or if you want to make a copy, and when you have...
I can make copies easier than I can read.
Later, when I'm gone, then if you would go through and correct any mistakes that I've, or add anything to it, and then I'd like to compile a narrative, and then get you with Carolyn Windsor. So
Let me make a copy of that right now while it's on my mind.
yeah, that'd be great. You can, then we'll have exchanged that, and I'd like to get your an email address I can communicate with you through, all those things.
Worst part of this aging from 85 to 90
Yes.
is you can't control your feet. Have no control with my feet.
Huh. Have you ever heard of the ionic foot soaks? I've had people with neuropathy. I did those at the EE System Center, and anyway, it was amazing how it would help people with the neuropathy.
No, the messages don't go from, the thinking process changes, and therefore the signals to the feet are different. And what I learned first was the tendency to, your foot turns out like this, and then you have no balance. And where my sister is in a retirement home, the women are always falling down. The men are falling down. She said, why is everybody falling down here? I said, it's their feet. They don't have good support shoes, and they don't know why they need support shoes. And they don't want to bend over and tie the shoe. It's the feet. I'm telling you, it's the feet. If I don't have my good walking support shoes, like here, I have all kinds of things I can grab a hold of if I get on the wrong side of the foot. But
Well, you know what, Rita? I know what you're talking about. Like when our ponds froze up, and 5 years ago I tried ice skating, and I could just barely, my ankles were just not right. But this last time I was in the middle of this severe rash coming out after I put the ivermectin in my eyes and my ears and my nose
yeah,
and my belly button, and I got on the ice and I was able to skate.
oh,
I started slow, but then it just came back. It's like there was something came back as far as this communication. I think the parasites are blocking. So you might
that's
find
why I'm thinking the parasites for me
in the eyes and the
is
ears.
in the ears, and that's affecting all of the nerves, from here out.
Mhm.
But that's only been something that's been brought to my attention in recent days. So with your reminding me of how I could make more use of the ivermectin,
It's okay.
that's the direction I need to be going.
Okay. Well, let me write here. I'll write down the name of where you, or if you give me your email, I'll just send you the link, and then you can go right to the. As long as you have the Telegram app on your phone. I can send you the those. Yeah, let's do it by email rather than trying to write everything.
Right.
It's so convenient.
I do virtually everything by email.
Great. Okay. Well then, let me just.
Here's your report.
Okay. Beautiful. It was quite an effort for me to sit down and because I was of the so I didn't want to forget it. but
I'll put that in your,
let me,
I-
let me
in your
find.
book. Just find a page and I'll give you the,
Here it is. This is all the information I found online about you to find you
yeah,
here.
there's a
Actually.
lot of stuff about me online that's not true, so.
Well, I'm sure that is. There's always disinformation, but
I had it, oh, here, I moved it the other day. Let me get it. Put it in there. It's got my phone number and my email. You've already got my address,
Yeah, I have it written over here somewhere.
but I can give you the one with the address as well.
Okay.
I tried to keep files of everything. I'm not always successful at putting it in